Folks, I was wrong about blaming the freeze miser for what happened during the big freeze. I was wrong in blaming them. I have some new information I need to tell you, and you need to hear. Well, first of all, I am happy to report I had zero damage to my well plumbing. None of the plumbing coming out of the well busted. Absolutely no damage, and I am extremely thankful for that. But that's not what I'm talking about here, about how I was wrong about the freeze miser. Let me explain something to you. The guys from Freeze Miser watched my video and contacted me by email, saying that they would like to talk to me about it, about the failure I had. Well, first of all, what company contacts somebody, a no-name guy like me, and wants to discuss a failure of their product? That right there shows me they are committed and concerned about everything that goes out the door for them. That's impressive in itself. What they asked me to do was to take a picture of, or a video of, my well piping, show it to them so they could try to figure out what happened. They assured me that the freeze miser is used all up north where it gets much colder than what we got, even though we got 0 or below. They say it's used up in Canada, that there's nothing that's that 0 degrees is nothing for it, that it functions well and has developed a wide acclaim being used up where it gets 10 below, 20 below. So they said that there's no way it should have failed at 0 degrees. So they wanted to see a picture of all this piping, which I did for them. As I was making that short video and showing them my plumbing here, it dawned on me what happened. So what is the new information? Well, let me first give you a timeline. When I first came out here and looked at the freeze miser, checking it out to make sure it was working, it was about between 14 and 17 degrees outside. I don't remember exactly, but it was mighty cold for East Texas. I showed that the freeze miser was doing its thing, was working well, and was keeping my chickens' water thawed out because of the running, trickling of the freeze miser. Well, that night, my power went off for 2 hours. And until I was showing them my setup here, that just didn't dawn on me that that's what the problem was. When my power went out, my well drained out. I don't know how familiar you are with a well, but that has a rubber bladder in it, and it, as the pump comes on, it fills that bladder. That helps it maintain a pressure, constant pressure. But even if you turn the well off, the well is going to run until that bladder depressurizes. When the pressure falls, my well shuts off. It's because I have a switch on it that will not allow it to keep running when it runs dry. This well will run dry. It's a shallow well, and it's about 65 feet deep, and I can fairly quickly run it dry. If I'm running 2 sprinklers for about 8 hours, 10 hours, something like that, it will run dry. Well, I've got a switch on it right here, that little lever right there, that when it runs dry, it flips that lever. When it does, the well will not kick back on when the power kicks back on. So because of that, my well sat here, power went out, the trickling of the freeze miser drained the well like it's supposed to do, exactly like it's supposed to do, drained that tank, drained the pressure off, and probably did it within, I don't know, 10 minutes or so out of a 2-hour blackout. I did not even consider that my well was off and what it was going to do out here, or I would have come back and kicked it on the next morning when the power came back on. So in telling them this and showing them the plumbing, I realized what had happened. So it was no fault of theirs. It was my fault in that I didn't realize what had happened, that the power cutting off would have drained the well and would have stopped the freeze miser from working. Now, I told you that my brother experienced the same thing, and he told me his power went out for 5 hours, and I told him that's what happened. The freeze miser worked like it was supposed to, but unfortunately the well didn't kick back on. Had the well kicked back on, freeze miser would have started working again, and everything would have been hunky-dory. So I owe freeze miser an apology. I am going to take that first video down. This one will replace it. So let's do a test with the freeze miser. Currently the freeze miser that I originally had is in my deep freeze. It says 0 degrees in my deep freeze. I'm going to bring it out and attach it to that hose right there and turn it on. He said it should run for about 2 to 3 minutes while it warms up enough, with the water passing through it, it warms up enough to warm up the freeze miser enough to turn off. So I'm going to shut the camera off, run and get the freeze miser. Shouldn't be 20 seconds from the time I get it out of the freezer till the time I start this video again, and we'll see, we'll give it the test. So the freeze miser has been in the freezer, 0 degrees. I put it on my hose. Turn it on, and it runs. As it warms up, just like it's supposed to do, it should turn off. He said it would take 2 or 3 minutes, so I'll fast forward a little bit. Obviously starting to slow down. I felt a little kick in. There's a rod inside it that moves. I don't know exactly how it works, but there's a rod inside that shuts off the water when the water temperature, when the outside temperature gets above 38. Well, it's 70 degrees right now, or close to it. And as you can see, it's closing it off. And done. That took about a minute, maybe. So that's what's supposed to happen. And be quite honest, that's what they say to do every one that you get, to test it before you use it. So there's nothing wrong with this freeze miser. There was nothing wrong with it during the big freeze when my well power went off and shut off the water to this. If there's no water to this, it can't run. If it can't run, the hose freezes, right? Makes sense. My bad, my fault. They sent replacements to me, and I just want you to know that it was not freeze miser's fault. It was working flawlessly at 15 degrees, and there was no reason for me to believe that it's going to do even less at 0, 10 below, whatever, just like they claim. So, my bad. And I disparaged a company that has a lot of integrity. If they didn't have that integrity, they would not have called and wanted to make this right. I mean, who does that anymore, right? So, happy with the freeze miser. I will use them extensively next year. However, I hope it never gets that cold in Texas again. But if it does, I think I'm covered with the freeze miser. So what do we learn from this? Well, when I talked to the guys at Freeze Miser, they said that they want this to be a learning experience for them that they can pass on to their customers and let them know there has to be pressure at the Freeze Miser. They say that in their literature, but I think they now know that they need to stress that and make sure everybody knows if your well cuts off, you're going to need to take precaution. So I'm very happy with this. Again, when I told you I thought it was going to be a game changer for me, I believe that again now. I think it was my, it's hard to say it was my fault. I didn't make the power cut off, but it is my fault for not realizing what happened and blaming them for it. And I apologize to them. I apologize to you for misleading you on that. And if it caused any of you not to buy one, then I am truly sorry for that, because I do believe it's a good product. And obviously, they stand behind that product or they'd have never called me, right? Again, who does that? So, good Texas company, good Texas people, and I'm proud to have one. Freeze miser. Hopefully I don't need it again this year. Hopefully the cold weather's gone, but you might need it right now, and certainly next year. And I will remind you next year about this long before winter comes. You need one of these if you have outside water that you're afraid of getting busted, freezing up, pipes busted, plumbers, everything else. So, freeze miser, I'm a believer once again. All right, we're gone.